Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 25 series, Can We Save the Oakland A's? And it is time to get this 2032 season underway. It ended up being a busy offseason for the Oakland A's in the trade market. We did not do much of anything in free agency until the final weeks of free agency when we added some decent talent to minor league contracts, but we were definitely not big spenders. We have taken a look at the waiver wire. Unfortunately, there's not anyone that we think would upgrade this roster materially available. There is one pitcher that we kind of liked, but he's making $9 million a year as a reliever. So the Dodgers have the ability to dump a player like that to, as we experienced in recent episodes, throw lots of money at the likes of Mr. Bame and Mr. Lewis. And they don't even mind, after signing those guys to huge contracts, just dumping someone making $9 million a year and dealing with those ramifications. But unfortunately for us, the ramifications of dumping someone making $9 million would be pretty critical. Still the lowest budget in baseball this year at $158 million, and as the season gets underway, the lowest payroll in baseball at $86 million. We do have a decent amount of money available to potentially bring on some contracts as we do get closer to the trade deadline, or if someone more interesting and perhaps more economical ends up hitting the waiver wire in the coming days and weeks and months. Kept scouting and development at the same levels as a year ago. Honestly, pretty healthy levels, particularly player development for a team with the lowest budget in all of baseball. And we put a little bit of extra money into the draft budget for this July to hopefully gives ourselves little bit extra flexibility. We're not going to be picking until I think the mid-20s, but still might be some interesting players available there that are looking for a bit more than slot. And as we reviewed at the end of the last episode, the national media predicted us to go 80 and 82 this year, which would mean we would just miss on achieving a winning record, which is a big goal for us this season, both in terms of ownership and also just in terms of me wanting to feel like we've turned a bit of a corner with this team. We've made the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years, made it to the ALCS in both of those seasons that we did go to the playoffs, and we won a World Series back in 2029. But the year in between, in 2030, we had the worst record of this run with the A's, winning just 71 games. So a third winning season in 4 years, and hopefully a third playoff appearance in 4 years would make me feel a little better about what we've constructed with this team, despite our low payroll. And as we've talked about a lot since the end of last season, we also have a ton of big-time players who are going to be potentially leaving after this year, which is another reason to keep the band together for this season and then hopefully accomplish as much as we can this year and then reset on the fly for next season. But starting shortstop Brian Rincon, starting third baseman Colt Keith, 2 critical players for the team, both in the last years of their contract. Jackson Ferris and Chase Burns heading for very big arbitration numbers, and then some expensive team options on the likes of Mason Miller, Chase DeLauder, Drake Baldwin, Chase Lee, Jefferson Rojas, arbitration, Justin LeBron, Hideki Arakawa, Henry Lillane, with numbers that we'll at least have to give some hard thought to, and even Tyler Soderstrom as he gets into his 30s, given his defensive limitations. At some point, the team options on him may not be as attractive as we think they are right now. So going to be making a lot of tough decisions this offseason. But in the meantime, I feel pretty confident that this is better than a 500 type team. I think the 80 and 82 projection was just unlucky, perhaps even unfair. And I think this squad will be more competitive than the media expects when all is said and done. Key additions to the pitching staff as this season gets underway. Made a trade for our new closer, Andrew Nardi. Promoted Jeremy Scholl, who's come up through our organization. Signed Cole Henry to a minor league free agent contract. Brought back Mason Black. Made a trade for Henry Lelane. And picked up Jose Acuna as a Rule 5 acquisition. And we've also promoted Caden Dana from the bullpen in the rotation to fill the spot in the rotation vacated by the departure of Shane Baz. So a fair amount of new arms on the team this year, and similarly in the lineups as well. Max Kaufer, who we traded for this offseason, is our new catcher against left-handed pitching. We also made transactions to bring Jefferson Rojas and Bobby Cabral on board, and also some new young blood that's come up through our organization in the likes of Kevin Stubblefield and Jake Ortega, and then a veteran who we signed to a minor league deal in Judd Fabian was the final guy to make our 26-man roster. Not sure how long he'll be around. A lot depends on how productive his right-handed bat is in his opportunities to play against left-handed pitching. And the early weeks of the season have gone fine for our Oakland A's. 8-6 record through the first 18 games, just a half game behind in the AL West. Colt Keith was just named the AL Player of the Week, hit .500, had 3 homers and 8 ribbies over the past week. You can see he's hitting .340 with 7 homers and 14 ribbies in the early going of this season. Mentioned at the top of the episode that the now 30, soon to be 31-year-old Mr. Keith is headed to free agency after this season. He is looking for 8 years at almost $25 million a year. As great as he has been for Oakland, and he has been the cornerstone of our offense since he came on board, never having a WRC plus below 144 in a season. Given his age and his fragility and the financial situation we find ourselves in here in Oakland, not really that interested in making an 8-year commitment to him. And honestly, even if he was going to make a much shorter deal with us, 5 years or something that would take him well into his mid-30s, I think I'd still want to see a few more cards by seeing how this season goes, seeing if he has any injury issues, seeing if he deteriorates at all. $25 million a year for him, if he plays the way he's played the last 3 years, is a more than reasonable number. But if he drops off, which is certainly possible given his age and his fragility, that type of contract could become a big problem for a team like the A's. So as interesting as I think it would be to bring him back, we're just going to be patient for the time being. And our A's went 7-0 over the past week since we last checked in, so the winning streak is now up to 8 games, 15-6 record right now. Puts us 4 up on the Mariners and 4.5 up on the Astros in the AL West. Still very early going, but happy to see this team off to a good start. Bobby Cabral, the new addition, second in the AL, tied with our old friend Hidero Endo with 9 homers, although it looks like Endo just suffered a fractured ankle for the next 3 to 4 months, so we won't be seeing him for a long time. But Endo with a .213 average, but a .877 OPS, by far the best of his career. Unfortunately, it's only over 75 at-bats, and he's going to be missing a good chunk of the rest of the season. Colt Keith, third in the league in OPS in this early going, and Jackson Ferris in what could be his final year with us, tied for the league lead in wins in ERA, while our new closer, Andrew Nardi, is second in the league in saves. You can see Shoji Bame off to a really nice start in his career with the Dodgers, a guy that we looked at all offseason, ended up not actually making an offer to him at the end. We had made a couple offers to him. He was always looking for more money, and eventually we just decided we weren't going to bid against ourselves, and he ended up signing with the Dodgers, as we alluded to at the beginning of this episode, and 314 average, 4 homers and 20 ribbies, off to a more than respectable start in his first 21 games in the United States Major Leagues. And while we're talking about the strong start for Bobby Cabral, who was one of our big trade acquisitions this offseason, note that he just won the AL Star of the Week. So with the undefeated record, 7-0 this week, he follows up Player of the Week from a week ago, Colt Keith. Cabral, 6 homers, 12 ribbies, and a 455 average. He also had a 3-home run day yesterday in a victory over the Angels. Jackhammer Possessor brought up maybe trying to lock up Cabral early, given he was so successful this offseason developing his power in the development lab. It's an interesting idea. He's just barely over a year of service time, so at this point, when we think about Mr. Cabral going to be making the minimum this year and next year, and then start getting into, if he keeps playing this way, some arbitration numbers that will get relatively high. If we were to try to look for an extension with him, you can see an 8-year deal to potentially buy out a few of the free agent years, looking for 8 years at $67 million. If he plays the way that he's playing so far this year, it's a perfectly reasonable contract to be paying him $8.5 million a season. I do think I'm inclined to just kind of hold tight with him at the major league minimum for the next couple years, and then getting into arbitration. Although this is going to be his first full season in the majors. He's relatively old at 25 and a half for someone who's really getting his first full-time crack in the major leagues. I think he can be a very interesting player for us, and certainly brings a dimension in terms of the home run power that we've struggled to find over the years, but feel like we've got control of him for the next 3 or 4 seasons at very reasonable amounts, even if he blows up and becomes the best player in baseball. And I think kind of wait and see what he looks like when he starts getting closer to 30. Clearly, if he struggled and the amount that he was looking for came down, that might be something for us to think about. But with the fast start he has to the season, and the fact that we've already made this offseason a couple of long-term commitments to other players who are even younger than Cabral, I think we'll just kind of be patient with him for the time being, see how he plays this first full year in the majors, and see how Oakland over the next couple of seasons plays on the field, and what type of financial resources we ultimately end up with. And since I mentioned the 2 youngsters who are younger than Cabral that we did sign to extensions this offseason, take a look and see how they're doing in the early going. Kevin Stubblefield, barely above the Mendoza line, hitting just .206. Does have 3 homers and 9 ribbies, but an 81 WRC plus. You'll remember he did not play for us in the majors last year, but we did bring him up for the playoffs, where he won the ALDS MVP. So not the most exciting start to Stubblefield's major league career, but still have hopes that he'll continue to develop and be a pretty good right-handed bat for us, which is something we've been searching for years. Jake Ortega, former 3rd overall pick, is also up with us, and he's doing really well, off to a fantastic start, hitting .359 with 6 doubles, 2 homers, and 7 ribbies and 64 at-bats. He's playing every day against left-handed pitching, and we've got him set up to also get some playing time in the outfield and at DH regularly against right-handed pitching. 21 games into the season, and you can see he started 16, played in 17, so not perhaps getting as much action as we had hoped, but still out there more often than not, and maybe we'll tweak the settings with our lineup against right-handed pitching to try to get Ortega in the lineup a little bit more often than he has been thus far. And as good as we were feeling with that 8-game winning streak and the fact that we had won 12 out of 13, we've just lost 5 in a row now to finish off the month of April. So a 15-11 record as we head to May 1st. The lead has been shrunk to just half a game over the Mariners and just 2 over the Astros. Take a look at some early team statistics to see if maybe we've made some progress on our offense. Our 15-11 record is a little worse than Pythagorean expectations. We're tied for 5th in the American League in runs scored, so the offense definitely better than it was last year. We're tied for 12th in home runs. Ownership is requested that we improve this year, and given that we were 15th last year, just about anything except finishing last in the AL again will be a modest improvement. The pitching remains our strength, first in the American League in runs allowed, and we've also had solid defense, ranking 5th in defensive efficiency and 5th in zone ratings. So a solid start to the season for these Oakland A's here in 2032. And unfortunately, the month of May hasn't started off any better than the month of April finished. We lost our first 5 games of the month of May. So an 8-game winning streak was followed immediately by a 10-game losing streak. So certainly these A's have been quite volatile here in the early going of this season. We stand at just 17-17 now, 3rd place, 3 games behind. So after that start that we were feeling real good about, that 10-game losing streak and a 2-8 record over our last 10 has us reeling a bit at this point. Cabral ranks 2nd in the league in homers and 3rd in ribbies, so he has certainly been a big-time addition to our offense. Already in his first 32 games with Oakland, has hit 13 home runs, matching what he did in less than half a season in Detroit last year. And our A's are just playing brutal baseball. We talked about the 10-game losing streak. We somehow ended that, taking 2 out of 3 at home against Seattle. And since then, we've lost 6 more in a row. So we stand at 17-23 now. We've fallen all the way to 4th place, 8 games behind in the division, just playing some awful baseball. See how the team statistics have evolved for us, and I guess the positive thing is that we're a little unlucky at 17-23. We're 4 games below Pythagorean expectations. The numbers say we should be just over 500, but that's hard to do when you have a 2-12 record in the month of May. We've dipped to 9th in the league in runs scored, 13th in homers, and the pitching has not been as good either over this losing streak. We now rank 6th in the AL in runs allowed, and even our defense is unfortunately middle of the pack here in mid-May. And we've made it to the month of June. You can see we've got some good development that's happened with Jake Ortega over the past month, and he was also just named the American League's best rookie. So while he's still got to work on that home run power and not making a ton of progress there, he's been a lot more productive in his first full season in the majors than he was as a September call-up last year. hitting .316 with 14 doubles and 5 homers and 171 at-bats. Also 5 for 5 on the base path, so he's put up a 135 WRC plus and a 1.5 WAR for us. The team played slightly better over the last few weeks of May, granted, given that we only won 2 games through the first half of the month. Not too hard to play better, but we've won 5 in a row at this point, so it's been a very streaky season for these Oakland A's. As we sit here on June 1st, a 25-28 record, still in 4th place, 7.5 back. Colt Keith ranks 2nd in the AL with 47 runs batted in. He's the only guy on the A's who's still near the top of the main leaderboards. We've definitely gotten unlucky, 4 games below Pythagorean expectations. The numbers say we should be 29-24. But that 15-11 April with a long winning streak has been more than overcome by a 7-game below 500 month of May, where we went 10-17, and we were 5-17 until those final 5 games of the month. Ranked 2nd in the AL in runs scored, and we're tied for 6th in runs allowed. So it seems like we've gotten a bit unlucky when all is said and done. Rank 11th in home runs, so we've made a little bit of progress there just far. Looking at our batting statistics, where we're generally middle of the pack in most categories, probably a bit lucky to be 2nd in runs scored. Pitching has historically been this team's strength. 6th in the AL in runs allowed is fine, but I think we're going to need to be better than that when all is said and done, if we're going to get this team back over 500 and hopefully be competing for a playoff spot. And our defense this year has been pretty average, which is definitely a bit disappointing compared to the defense this team has played in prior seasons. And before we finish up the episode, we'll take a quick look at how the team is doing, and obviously a lot of details here for those of you interested in all of the nitty-gritty details. The pitching staff, the starters have generally been meh. Mason Miller's been good. Caden Dane has been bad. Overall, got a bunch of guys with ERAs in the mid-4s. New closer Andrew Nardi, the 6.50 ERA is not impressive. Cole Henry hasn't been good either, but the rest of the bullpen has been pretty solid. We've talked a lot about Keith and Cabral and Jake Ortega, who are all having very good seasons for us. Kevin Stubblefield has only been okay, but Luis Lara, the center fielder who had an excellent year for us a year ago, really struggling this year, hitting a .195. Tyler Soderstrom hitting just a .190. Looks like he's gotten old. And Brian Rincon has been healthy, but batting just a .163 on the season with only 7 ribbies through 50 games. He still is above replacement level thanks to his good defense, despite that 58 WRC plus. But certainly we're hoping for a more productive offensive year from Mr. Rincon here and what will likely be his final go-round with this team. So definitely areas for us to try to improve both in pitching and in the lineup. And we're going to be spending a lot of time offline thinking about that as this team gets closer to moving from the spring into the summer and getting closer to the draft and the trade deadline. And hopefully the month of June will end up being better on the field for Oakland than the month of May was. As I mentioned, we're 4 games below Pythagorean expectations. The pitching's been a bit above average. The scoring has been excellent by this team, so we've gotten a bit unlucky. That said, I think there's definitely areas that we can improve, and it's going to be something that we're going to focus on, trying to put some trades together that can get this team playing better on the field, hopefully, in the coming days and weeks and months. Because as we've talked about, in addition to our goal to achieve a winning record this season, Ownership also expects a championship this year. We won that championship, as I talked about, in '29, and they expected another one within 3 years. That may be a bit ambitious, but we'll find out if we can make a little more progress towards at least getting this team back into the playoffs in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.